In this video, we're going to be building and deploying a full authentication system using NextAuth in Next.js. And look, I've been through a lot of authentication systems. I had an email, password, and name type of verification. I've used Google Auth. But today, in my opinion, we will be doing the best one possible. It is email verification. So rather than having the user's name, email, and password and having to store all of that information into the database, all we're really doing is just asking the user for their email and sending them a verification email in order to verify that that is them. And once they do verify themselves, then we log them in. And trust me, this is much easier than you might think. We're going to go through everything in this video. And real quick, the tech stack that we will be using is obviously Next.js, NextAuth, Postgres database, and I'll be using NeonDB, Prisma DB for our ORM, and Shadcn UI as our UI library. We'll barely be using it, but we just need it for a couple of things. And with that being said, let's get into the video. If you're ever confused, then check out the chapters below. Okay, so you may be wondering why I got a haircut in between the introduction and the rest of the video. I'm recording this after the tutorial just to show you what we built. And real quick, all we're doing here is that whenever the user puts in their email, so let's say this is my email, they click on sign up with magic link. And if we go to our email over here, you will see that we get a notification saying that, as you can see, I tried it a bunch of times. You have a link here, you sign in, and then your email displays here just to know that we are logged in. Nothing huge, just the basic UI. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and let's get into it. But before getting into the actual code, I just wanted to talk about how this entire process works. And basically, it boils down to the user, the actual application, and finally, some form of auth service that we are using. And in our case, we are using NextAuth. Our application is just a basic application, and the user is going to be obviously you or the person that is trying to access your application. And how this entire process works is that the user in our application will input their email, and once the user inputs their email, we will be using NextAuth as our authentication provider. We will get NextAuth to send the user an email that includes a token so that they will be automatically logged in, and a token and the email that they put in will be associated with that user. So for example, let's say the user's email is like a@gmail.com. I know it's generic, but a@gmail.com. NextAuth will then associate that email with the user, send them a specific token to their email, and as soon as they open it, we know that it is actually them. Thus, this email is associated with this user, and they have access to whatever they want, or they are granted, certain features. But anyways, enough with the jargon. Let's actually get started with the actual code. And to get started, we have to run up with our Next.js application, and to do that, we need to run npx create next app at latest, and I'm going to do // because I don't want the extra folder. And for all these questions, I'm just going to hit enter on all of them, and with that, it's going to take some time. That's totally fine, but in the meantime, please like and subscribe. It would really go a long way. And so in our application here, I'm just going to clear everything up so you can see things better, and I'm going to run npm run dev to run the application. And I'm going to go into our page.tsx, and I'm just going to remove this piece of code because we don't need it. So I'm just going to run div like this and write hi. And so how the rest of the tutorial will work is we're going to first work on the UI for the sign up form. This is going to be the quickest part of the application. We are then going to set up our database and ORM, which is going to be Prisma and Neon. And finally, we're going to set up NextAuth and Magic Link so that we can verify users. And so let's just start with the UI. I'm going to use Shadcn UI as my UI library because their inputs look really good and their buttons look really good, and plus they add functionalities as well. So I'm just going to look for the installation process over here, and to do it we need to run npx shadcn UI at latest init. But for me, at latest does not work for some reason, so I'm just going to run npx shadcn UI init, and again I'm just going to run enter on every single question over here, and let's wait for it to install. And then the only main thing we need to install is their input, because that's really the only thing we need for Magic Link. And so to grab that, we need to run npx shadcn UI at latest add input. Again, I'm going to remove the at latest. I don't know why it doesn't work. It's kind of stupid, but it's okay. And with that being said, we can just get started with the main part. So I'm just going to stick in the main page over here only because it's simple, and everything here again will be left in the GitHub repository below, just so everything's a bit easier for you. So I'm just going to run class name in the main page, and I'm going to add a padding of 20 just to space everything out. And then within here, I'm going to have a form with the input, which is imported from @/component/UI input. This is the input that we just installed, right? And then all we need down here is the button saying sign up with magic. And let's just design these real quick. So I'm going to have a class name here of rounded large border 2. On the button over here, I'm gonna have a margin top of 3. Again, I'm just doing design basically randomly here. I don't have a specific thing in mind. So a margin top of 3, a padding of 3 as well, a background of black, rounded large, and text of white. I think this looks pretty cool. And honestly, for the input, I'm also gonna have a placeholder, Tyler Durden, the GOAT, so Durden at gmail.com, as just a placeholder over here. And surprisingly, that is all we need for the UI. It's super simple, and that's why I like Magic Link so much. You don't have to worry about the login form, the sign up form, the reset password form. It's all one thing. All you probably want to have as well is OAuth, which I could make a video on, but it's so simple. I love it so much, and I just been using it on all my applications, and it's just been the best thing ever. And so with the UI done, the next thing we need to do is create our database, connect to our database, and set up Prisma, which is the ORM that we will be using for this authentication video. And so all we need to do first to set up the database is obviously grab a database. And for that, I'm going to be using Neontech. Again, this is not sponsored in any way. I just use it. It's absolutely free. And a secret for you, use different emails because they only allow one like free project per email. I just keep creating emails. Don't tell them that. I just like doing that. And so I'm just gonna, and so I just went to console.neon.tech or just neon.tech like this. And I'm gonna name my application just Magic Link like this, and then create project. And so then what we want to do is go down over here, head over to Prisma, go to env, and just copy this exact database URL. Don't even worry about the database unpooled URL, just this first one over here. And so then what we want to do is create an .env file and just paste the database URL in here like that. And then once we have that, we need to just go into our terminal and we need to install Prisma, which is the ORM that we're using. So let's just install that using npm install prisma-safe-dev. And then once that's finished, we need to run npx prisma init to create our Prisma folder. And if we go into our files over here, you can see that Prisma, and you can see that we have our Prisma folder with some basic code over here. So I'm just going to delete what we do not need. And in our env file, you can see here, we just have everything's fine. Everything's perfect. Okay, so awesome job so far. You can just delete everything over here. And thus far, we've only done basic things. So we've only done the UI and we've only connected to our database and ORM. What we need to do next now is input the certain models or like the certain pieces of data that we need in order to create a user, store a user, and send a user a verification token on login. And so to do that, we first need to install NextAuth. So let's just do that first. There's going to be a lot of installations in this section. So let's just run npm install NextAuth. And we're also going to install Prisma Adapter, which is a part of NextAuth. So we're just going to look, I just looked up Prisma Client NextAuth. I'm not a genius, I just looked it up. And then I went down here and I'm just going to copy both of these over here, and I'm also going to install it. So it's npm install Prisma Client, NextAuth Prisma Adapter, and then Prisma, which we already did. So this one you don't even need, but I'm just going to do it anyways. And then once we have that, we can just create our schema Prisma. And I'm just going to copy this from another project of mine, but you can just go below and copy this exact code. Honestly, I'm just going to copy the file and I'm going to paste it over here and just delete what I do not want. So let's just do this. Account, session, user, and I do not need these over here nor these over here. So we just have both of these, and this is what it looks like if you want to just copy it and pause. So we have the account model, the session model, the user model, and the verification token model. And I know you probably know what this is, but this is to create the account, this is to create the session, this is to know that the user is verified, and finally this is to send the user a verification token. And so now, just to set everything up, let's just run npx prisma db push to push all this new code in the schema Prisma to our database. And once we run that, it should load in a second, and there we go. So we just updated our schema Prisma, and we can just close this up, close this up, and close this up as well. And we're almost there, I promise you. It's just a lot of setting up, but once we're done with the setups, everything is just really seamless. So what we need to do next is go into our lib folder, and we need to create two main files to work everything out in terms of authentication. The first one being auth.ts, which is the main file for our authentication, and the second one is db.ts, like this. And we're actually going to start with the db.ts, and here is where we need to create our Prisma clients. If you didn't realize earlier, we installed something called Prisma Client. And so what Prisma Client will allow us to do is just write type safe type of code. Like it'll give us errors straight from the get-go. Like if we like mess something up using the Prisma library, it will automatically show us. I've always used it, and it's just always been great for me when talking to databases and using it in the front end to talk to databases. And so what we want to do is just import the Prisma client like this. It's going to be from @Prisma client, and we're going to do const Prisma client singleton is equal to return new Prisma client like this. And then we're going to declare a global with curly brackets and then a var Prisma undefined or return type of Prisma client singleton, and then const Prisma is equal to global this dot Prisma or Prisma client singleton function. And then we're going to export default Prisma, and then if the process.env.node_env does not equal production, then global this dot Prisma is equal to Prisma. Now I usually copy this from the Prisma documentation, but I couldn't find it, so I just had to write it down. That's totally fine. So we just wrote this out. This is what we'll be using to use Prisma throughout our app. And so now we can just close up the db.ts. And in our auth.ts, this is going to be the main file. Again, this is going to be the main file for our authentication. This is where we're going to send the emails. This is where we're going to write what to send, what thing we're going to be sending. So this is really important. And so in here we have a couple of imports. The first one is going to be import next auth options from next auth like this. I'm just going to fix this up. We're also going to import the email provider. This is from next auth / provider's email. We're also going to import the Prisma adapter that we installed. So Prisma adapter from next auth Prisma adapter. And finally, we're going to be importing the Prisma that we did in our DB file. And I like to do @ because it just feels a lot better. And I like to do @lib here because I just like the @ it's better than the dot. I don't know why. I like to keep things consistent. And so then what we need to do is do export const auth options, and then next auth options that we imported is equal to adapter, Prisma adapter with the Prisma like this, comma, and then providers. And so the main provider that we will be using is email provider. Here's usually where you would call your Google OAuth, your GitHub OAuth. Here's where you'll do that. But for us, we're just going to have the email provider for today. And we're going to have the regular brackets and then the curly brackets. And within here, we're going to have a server. And essentially, here's where we're setting everything up, like connecting to Resend, which is the email provider that we will be using. And so within the server, we're going to have a host. We're going to have a port. We're going to be having an auth with a user and a pass. And finally, outside of this, we'll be having a from. So you were probably like really confused what we're going to be doing here, but you can kind of see everything coming together. And so I know there's a lot of errors and we're not done. We have to actually input things over here. But what we need to do next is let's just open this back up like this. And we need to go to resend next auth and just go to the first link you see over here. We need to go down and we need to install Node Mailer. So let's just install that first. So let's clear this up and run npm install node mailer. And then down here, right under node mailer, you can see there are a couple of things that we need. And this will be going in our env file. So let's just copy this, go into our .env and just paste it over here. And what we need to do is just grab the resend API key. So let's just remove this, go to resend.com, go to API keys, create API key, and let's just call this magic link, and then just copy this API key and just put it in over here. And so that done, right, we've connected to resend. And if you still don't know what resend is, we need to send the user an email. How we are sending the user an email is through this. We don't create our own system for sending emails. It's too much. So we're just using that as an easier way to do it. And so now we can just go into our auth.ts, and within each part here, we can just do process.env. So I'm just going to be copying this throughout the entire process over here, no pun intended. And so for the host is going to be email underscore server host. For the port, it's going to be email underscore server underscore port. And this one's actually going to be a parse int because I don't know why it wasn't working with me. So I had to do like a parse integer thing. So parse int and then as string comma 10, just like that. I'm actually going to add a comma here. And in the user is going to be email underscore server user. And obviously, you know what's going on here. Email underscore server password. And finally, email underscore server. And actually, it's no server here. It's just email. So let's just make sure everything's fine. So email from, email server port, host, password user. Everything's fine. Just make sure you're spelling everything correctly, okay? The env can be a problem, but you know, we're fine. But anyways, okay, we've done a lot of work and nothing to show for it. But there's one last thing we need to do before, you know, grabbing the information from the front end. And it is to finally just connect to next auth. This part over here, sure, we're connecting to next auth, but this is just the, how do you say it? This is just telling next auth what we want, and it is in the email provider, but we haven't actually connected to it. And to connect to next auth, we just need in our app folder, create an API folder, and within our API folder, we're gonna have an auth folder, and within our auth folder, I know there's a lot of folders, but it's just how it works. I like to keep things organized. In our auth folder, we're gonna have a bracket with the ... so 3 dots, next auth, just like this, and then finally, we're gonna have a route.ts in here. And so within here, we're gonna import the auth options that we just wrote. So auth options from lib auth. So we're basically just importing all of this. We're also just going to import next auth from next auth. And we're going to have a const handler equals to next auth options. And finally, we're going to export handler as get, handler as post. And basically what this little piece of code allows us to do is do basic post and get API calls throughout our app for authentication. And so now finally what we can do is let's just close everything up. We can go into our let's see if we can close this over here. We need to go into our app folder and our page where all of this is written. And we need to just write the function to be sending the user the email and telling NextAuth that we want to send the user an email. And so to do that, we firstly actually need to have a use client up here. So use client. And then the first thing we need is to have a email, set email use state. So set email is equal to use state null or string null, just like this. And we actually have to import use state, so my bad. And then what we need is we're gonna write a async function with a sign in with email, just like this. And within here, we're gonna have a const sign in result is equal to await sign in. And this is the main code that we have to import. So import sign in from -auth/react. So when the user clicks this button, we want it to sign in, basically. That's really it. And then we're gonna have brackets with email, comma, open that up with email, callback URL is $window.location.origin, and then redirect false. So we don't want that to redirect when we submit this. And then just a few handling things here just for the sake of it. If sign in result, there's no sign in results, then return an error. I know this is not ideal, but you know, just for the sake of this, we're gonna set the email to null or like nothing. We just want to reset the form. And then finally, we're going to return a success if everything works out fine. And so finally, what we need to do is go into our form here and do action equals to what is it called? Sign in with email. So let's just put that here. And then in our input here, we're just gonna have a name of email and a type of email, just like this. Actually, let me just do double brackets, just like that. And hopefully, right now, let me just get my Gmail account. Make sure you're using your actual like email or like the email you signed up to resend with, or else this won't work because you're in the local host. So I'm just gonna put in my own email, and this one right here. And hopefully, let me just get out my terminal here. We may run into errors, I don't know. Let me just press magic link, and we are seeing some form of error. That's normal. So I think I know what I did wrong. In our button, I think we just have to run submit as the type. And let's just try this again. Again, we're going to run into a bunch of errors. It's just normal. And I'm actually going to clear up everything here and run npm run dev again. This is just normal in the development process. So we should embrace it, not fear it. And so hopefully now if we run this again, we're getting the same error. So let's see what's up. Okay, so I think I know what the error is. So sometimes the divs within a form or on top of a form make it act weird. So what we need to do is remove the div. So do something like this and then just add the padding onto here like this. Again, I don't know why this happens. So yeah, apologies for that. And then you know what? While we're here, let's just add the on change for this. So what we need to do is just do on change is equal to e and then set email to e.target.value like this. And so now, hopefully after some time of debugging, if we input our email here, which is nizabizahad@gmail.com, let's sign up with the magic link. Let's check how our thing's doing here. This is normal. We didn't put an auth thing, so it's fine. I'll show you how to do that in a second. If we go to our thing over here, you can see we have a new onboarding email, which we want. And if we click on this, you can see that we just got a request or an email asking us to sign up. So let's just click on that real quick. And then we're just taken back into our page. So we're routed. To make sure this works, let's actually set up the session provider, and so we can like see the value and we can know if the user's in or not. So in our components page, real quick, okay, I'm just gonna create a provider.tsx. This is gonna be a use client. Again, this is what we're gonna wrap around our application in our layout, just so we can check if the user is verified, if they're logged in or not, stuff like that. And we're gonna import the session provider from next auth react. We're going to do const provider is equal to children. It's going to be any, because why not? And here we're going to have a return of session provider with the children. Finally, you just need to export default provider, and then all we need to do is just call the provider within our layout of the application. So we can just go into the layout, and then within this over here, so let's do this, we are going to do provider here from /component/provider, and we will wrap the entire application. And so now, since we used the link, right, we should be able to check whether or not the user is created or not. So within our page over here, let's close the async function. Let's do const data session is equal to use session from next auth. And basically what this is we're just grabbing the user's current session. So we're a user, we are logged in, that is our session right now. And to check whether or not we are a user, or if the user is logged in, we can just do something like this. So we can do session.user.email, and hopefully we should be able to see that the user is signed in. This is the email that I used to sign in, and because we used a magic link, the email is there. And so cool. So what we can do actually right now is let's just wrap this. You don't have to follow me on this one. I just wanted to show you something real quick. Is this. So let's have a button here, and to sign the user out, we can just import the sign out. And as we have been doing, let's create a const. Let's say logout function is equal to, let's actually make this async. We're just gonna have the sign out button, just like this, and that's really it. Let's just grab that, have a on click of logout. Actually, we don't even need the type submit. Just that, and then just say log out, and then hopefully if we click this, sign out. And right now you can see that there is no email. So let's just go through this one more time. Click this, put in the email. And obviously in a regular app, you'd have a notification system, reset everything here. Go to our email, see that we have a new notification, click on sign in, and hopefully, there we go. We have our email there. And so the final thing we can do if you want to is to deploy it. All we really need to do is just go here and just do something like post install Prisma generate, just like this. And then we can just push that to our file. So let's just do auth like this, push to origin, and then we will be deploying on Vercel. So, we can just go to Vercel like this, add new project, and just deploy it. And hopefully by the end of this deployment queued, everything will be deployed. And there we go. So it's successfully been deployed. It's obviously not going to work because we have to do some things to like make the functionalities work, like set up the env variables and stuff like that. But that's basically how you just deploy it. But yeah, if you like the video, then like the video. Please like and subscribe. Again, it would really go a long way. And if you have any questions, I will leave the Discord channel down below for any questions. And yeah, and also the GitHub repository. Okay, happy coding, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.